Speaking of new look parties and alternative governments, Peter Dutton is set to unveil his new look frontbench after Christmas amid a push from Conservative MPs for greater representation among senior ranks. Koss, who do you think deserves a promotion to the frontbench?
You know, I would just take a big picture look at this, Caroline, and I think it should be people that, first of all, represent the constituency of the Liberal Party, because there's all this discussion of the two people that are retiring that's leading to this reshuffle. They were from more of the moderate faction, and so there's thinking of sticking with more moderates. That's, I think, an outdated framework. Moderate versus conservative doesn't really track with where the constituency is. So it should be someone who's good at that, somebody who brings, I think, a little bit more contrast to the other side, because there's definitely this increasing feeling that the Liberal Party is different, but not sufficiently different, not offering sufficiently contrasting positions to the very serious problems facing the nation versus Labour. And then the third, in just this era that we live in, somebody that is good at communication and television and reclaiming and reframing narratives. So there's a few names out there. I wouldn't want to get in front of it, but people that tick those three boxes should be his driving factor.
Well, look, Nick, Koss has been very diplomatic there, but do you have any names in mind for who you would like to see on the front bench in the new year?
Look, it'll be unfair. It would be unfair. Look, I think there's a number of talented members who often some in their first term, so they need that experience behind them, who will make excellent cabinet ministers. I must say, for me, the big question here is who Peter Dutton picks as his new foreign minister, shadow foreign minister, because of course Simon Birmingham is stepping down. This is crucial. This is absolutely crucial, because right now we have a foreign minister who is the most dangerous, the most reckless foreign minister I've ever experienced in my time in Australia. And it is vital that we have a strong candidate to replace her at the next election, hopefully, because we cannot allow Australia's foreign policy to be dragged through the mud as it is at the moment.
Yeah, well, both of you, very diplomatic there. I will throw in a few names. I think James Paterson would make a great foreign minister, shadow foreign minister, although he's great on shadow home affairs as well. Maybe Dave Sharma, Julian Lee said they've been really strong, especially on the issues to do with the Middle East. Now, let's move on to a piece that you wrote, Nick, on the Sky News website in response to Zali Steggall's concept of baseload power, which in her own words, she's called antiquated and old-fashioned. Nick, you wrote, "This is the real world, which MPs like Steggall are prepared to ignore. Baseload power cannot be imagined away. And if Steggall wants us to stop burning coal and gas, nuclear energy is the only energy source capable of holding up the grid." Nick, can you tell us why her mindset is so problematic?
I was astounded by her comment. It just shows a complete energy illiteracy, I would call it. Really, let's put it that way, because there is no grid in the world that I've come across that is running on 100% renewables, with the possible exception of Norway. But then they've got so much hydroelectricity they don't know what to do with it. We don't have that. So every country has a baseload power source because you need it. And I noticed the other morning when I was actually writing this piece, you can go on to AEMO's app, and it'll tell you in real time who's burning what in which state. We were 92% coal at that point in New South Wales. Now, Zali Steggall's saying we don't need baseload, because what is coal? It's baseload. What we're going to replace that 92% with? She's just, I think, just not across the detail here, and it's extremely worrying, because she and the other Teals could be extremely influential in this debate if there was a hung parliament.
Now to some news very close to home. In a landmark deal worth $3.4 billion, News Corp subscription giant Foxtail has been sold to British sports network DAZN. Now, this marks the end of News Corp's long-running ownership of Foxtail. It's set to shake up Australia's media and sports landscape. Koss, what are your thoughts on this new ownership?
Yes, I think the name of the game in the media industry globally, and Australia is no exception, is scale. Because this time that we live in, you're competing against both traditional media giants and really the new digital giants, the Amazons and Netflixes of the world, that have hundreds and hundreds of millions of eyeballs coming to their platform every month. And the only way to really compete against platforms of that scale and be able to afford the very expensive sports rights, which is what Duttons' bread and butter is, as well as other content rights, is to see more consolidation. And so barring regulatory approvals, which will take some time, but everybody expects they're going to go through, this is the kind of thing that you're going to expect to see globally. And within the Australian landscape, it's certainly an expected, broadly speaking, but a shake-up in the landscape, because Foxtail has been sort of a feature and fixture over here. It's not going to change the day-to-day experience of consumers of Foxtail, but it's now going to be part of this bigger global conglomerate.
Well, it will be interesting to see what happens, if only from our perspective as Sky News personnel here, but we assure you we'll keep bringing you those stories at home and those opinions too. Now, meanwhile, Sydney-siders could miss out on the city's famous New Year's Eve fireworks after the New South Wales government has threatened to cancel the event should union workers carry out its threatened strike. Here was Premier Chris Menzies today.
At some point, the union leadership has to say, well, we've been given a fair offer. We can't hold the people of Sydney hostage.
Nick, aren't you just so sick of these union strikes? Is there anything they won't hijack? Now it's the fireworks.
That's right, and it's strange, isn't it? These things always tend to happen under Labor governments. I think the unions think they can try it on and get away with it with the Labor government. I think it's disgraceful behaviour by the union. I think the New South Wales government has no option but to cancel the fireworks, because it would be dangerous and impossible to get people in and out of the city, certainly out after the fireworks, without public transport. I mean, I take my hat off to, the bus drivers, the ferry drivers, the train drivers who have to work through the night, probably with penalties. But that's their job, and are they committed to their fellow citizens, or do they just want a few extra dollars in their own pocket and they'll do anything to keep it? I think it's disgraceful behaviour by the unions, and I'm glad that Chris Menzies is at least showing he's prepared to stand up to this.
Well, hopefully they will still be able to go ahead and Sydney-siders will be able to enjoy them in full. Nick, Kosha, thank you both for your time, and I hope you both have a wonderful New Year and a Merry Christmas as well.